Many, many years ago, this program has been on. I've been hosting it since July 10 of 2000. Many, many years ago, I think in 2003 or 4, before Hamas executed all of the Palestinian Authority thugs and threw them off of buildings, my caller Yoni called the show for the first time because I had asked a rhetorical question. Why doesn't Israel go into Gaza? And Yoni called up and said, because Gaza is a hellhole. And since then, Yoni has appeared many times. He's a veteran of Israeli military forces. He has been in Lebanon. He has been in Gaza. He's been all over Israel. He is a dual Israeli-American citizen. He joins me this morning. Yoni, I just gave the brief history of Gaza, that it was under the Ottomans, then it was under Egypt, then Israel got it in 67, then Sharon gave it back in 2005, then Hamas took over in 2009, and Netanyahu has, quote, mowed the grass ever since. Now the final battle for Rafah begins. How long do you think it will take?
Because of pressure from the United States and extra concern for civilian casualties, it will take longer than what it should. Probably 3 weeks is my guess.
After those 3 weeks, you expect Hamas to have been destroyed as a military operation?
Yes.
When that happens, I mean, there will be some people who escape, just like some Nazis escaped the Allies in 1945. What do you expect them to do? They can't get out. I think Israel's going to retake the Philadelphia corridor. They're going to establish strict facial recognition exits. There's no way to get out by sea. What do those people do, the remnants of Hamas?
They're going to rebuild Hamas, of course. 100%.
Won't Israel occupy Gaza for a number of years?
That is a very interesting and very difficult question. We left Gaza because the price of staying there, the Israeli general population thought it was too high, and obviously they were wrong because in the long run we paid a bigger price. I don't know how long we're going to wear the IDF in Gaza with daily or weekly casualties. The one thing that the population in Israel is not very tolerant of is an ongoing situation that takes toll in our kids. That got us out of Lebanon. That got us out of Gaza. I personally think that attitude, as much as it's caused by people's grief and pain at losing children, at having their sons come home minus eyes and limbs and all sorts of things, I think if we do a correct analysis of history of both southern Lebanon and Gaza, if we never would have left, the casualties would probably be lower than what they are now, and the threat to our cities from the rockets would be dramatically lower. I don't think that we can show compassion to people that 90% of them endorse Hamas and 7.
Well, I do think that if you retake, you being Israelis, and when I say you, you're also an American, Yoni, if Israel retakes Philadelphia and that corridor, they dig out the tunnels, they will cut off all except inspected smuggling of arms and the weaponry needed to sustain a long-term counterinsurgency. Insurgency is not there. They won't have enough.
No. I disagree totally. It'll go back to where it was. Historically, Hamas and other, Islamic Jihad, et cetera, in Gaza, they had underground facilities where they made exact copies of Soviet bloc or Chinese equipment, including having the Cyrillic writing on some of them. I mean, it was pretty bizarre. They'll go back to that. And that.
But Yoni, if the IDF is there for 2 years and they're in force and they're there destroying the tunnels with the Israeli combat engineers who are the world's finest, the equal of ours, and they methodically destroy the underground metro, And I don't know how you get new materials in to produce anything, because Gaza will not be open from the sea, from the Israel border, or from the Egyptian border. It will be finally closed. And I expect the Philadelphia corridor to be a moat. Won't it be a moat?
It should be.
Yeah, I mean,
complete with crocodiles for all
I know, and can't they dig down deep enough to do that?
Hugh, the reality is this. If we totally cut everything off from going into Gaza that's dual use, their economy will go down to zero. I mean, they bring in steel so they can manufacture things. Those things that they manufacture can be things that are used in agriculture or things that are used to make very good copies of AK-47s and Carl Gustav submachine guns.
Yoni, we have a few minutes here, and I really want to focus on the day after, and not the day after do we get an Arab Sunni state, the de-radicalization of Gaza, take over the schools, toss out UNRWA, completely cut off all dual-use imports, and it becomes not a subsistence economy, but a very basic economy where you, like Japan after World War II. We didn't let them have anything to rebuild weapons with.
Again, that's the way it should be. I'm not optimistic that that's the way it's going to be. Bibi unveiled his plan for the day after Gaza, and it was called Gaza 2035. And if you look at it, he wants to build Beverly Hills on the Mediterranean for it. He hasn't learned his lesson that the fact that he let billions of dollars in every year into Gaza that was used to smuggle in weapons. You know, if you build what he wants to build in Gaza, thinking that he's going to earn the love and respect of the people of Gaza, who still to this day, if you look at polls taken by Palestinians, for Palestinians, 90% of them support 10-7 and Hamas. Okay? There are exceptions. There was a doctor that paid the price of, I think it was $7,000 a head for the Egyptian military to smuggle his family out. And he said, I hate Hamas now, almost as much as I hate Israel. Okay, so the hate of us is endemic in Gaza. It's not going to go away in either of our lifetimes, and probably not my grandkids' lifetime. So we need to learn from our mistakes, but then the world will step up and go, oh, look how nasty you are to the people of Gaza. But the world doesn't give us a different solution. And Gaza, there's something inherent in Gaza. Did you know that all the way back to the times of Shimshon, Samson, who was in Gaza, the Plishtim, which are not the Palestinians, they were a Phoenician people. Gaza, for some reason, is a thorn in our side throughout our history. We have to solve this problem. And the problem with trying to solve that problem is we're going to stand alone. And
well, I think the solution, alone. And Yoni, I've got to run now, but I think the solution, I want to give you the last minute, is Monte Carlo or Singapore or one of the little tigers of Asia, which is wealth drives out extremism. And you cannot just dump gobs of money on a state that is a terrorist-inclined state, one that built and supported Hamas. You've got to actually supervise the building of Monte Carlo. You've got to make it so expensive and so invested that the people of Gaza don't want extremists because they like their life so much. Now, Hamas took all the money. You and I both know that. It was subsistence living for 95% of the people and a wonderful life if you were a terrorist, right? I think Israel's smart enough to change that now.
I disagree. I don't think we're smart enough, and I don't think it's going to change, again, not in my grandkids' lifetime. You cannot build with the enemy we have in Gaza. It'll be 100 years if the process is ever successful. It'll be 100 years to de-radicalize Gaza and the West Bank. And I just don't see it happening.
Did you ever, a last question, Yoni. Did you ever think that you would see the Abraham Accords? Saudi Arabia at the table. They need Israel. They need the technology, the brains, the AI, the supercomputer. They need Israel.
Hugh, I actually did believe that eventually the UAE and the Saudis would understand that the greatest threat to their future is the Turks and the Iranians. I actually did believe that because you could see that coming for decades. The Turks just called a full boycott of Israeli goods coming in or Turkish goods going to Israel.
Well, that's Erdogan playing. Erdogan suffered the biggest rebuke at the polls in his long dictatorship, and he's afraid he's got 3 years left, and he needs the radical Islamists of the eastern part of his country to stop Istanbul and the normal parts of his country from throwing him out.
Look, again, he just did a full boycott. The Turks want the Ottoman Empire back. The Iranians want the Persian Empire back. And as a result, the Arabs of the UAE, which I have friends in the UAE, and I've talked to people in Saudi Arabia. Not yet friends, but I have. And, I've been to every country in the UAE. And, that's the way the future should be. I mean, if we had a real president right now, they'd put a deal on the table with the Saudis that was co-endorsed by Israel that would say, you open your air bases up for coalition aircraft and your airspace, and we will rid the world of the Iranian nuclear threat with a follow-on by dropping weapons to the Iranian people so they can overthrow their government. And in exchange for that, you will have peace with Israel. But you walk away from, the new Saudi plan is that we go back to the 1948 border, not even the 67 border.
So that's the one we've seen. It's
dead on arrival.
Right, but that's also not the real deal.
Yeah.
I got to go back on the air, Yoni. That's not the real deal. The real deal is the Abraham Accords.
Walk away from the Palestinians. Saudi Arabia, walk away from the Palestinians, and let's make a peaceful Middle East.
Amen. On that note, thank you, Yoni. It's kind of ironic that you would call 20 years. It's been 20 years that we've been talking about this, and we began with Gaza, and we're back at Gaza over 20 years.